as someone who has trouble playing chopsticks, I am so impressed. Oh, isn't that amazing? The different gifts we each have and how blessed we are to bring them to one another. Oh, well, with this Sunday, we're beginning to shift into the 12 spiritual lessons of mastership. And we're going to be doing Knowing the Way this Sunday and Sunday after next. Next Sunday, Lane and I are going to be in Texas for our family reunion and our granddaughter's high school graduation. She's supposed to be this big. I don't know how that happened. So David is going to bless you with a message next week, so don't miss that. And so Knowing the Way is a combination of knowledge and intuitive knowing. And when we think of knowledge, that's one of those things that when I think of knowledge, my first thought is head knowledge, the things I've studied, the things I've learned. But this is speaking not only of that, but of deeper knowledge, that soul knowingness. There are times in your life, I've known you've had them, where you hear something, and as someone said to me when I first went to Unity in Dallas, you know that you know that you know. Levels. You know with your head, you know with your heart, you know with your very essence of being that manifests as who you are in the world. You know that you know that you know. And that's different than ego knowing that says, well, I know I'm right. The minute you hit that, you know, that's a different kind of knowing, because deeper knowing recognizes that it is all spirit, it's all divine, and that basically we're all trying to do with the best we can, even if our paths are very different and we don't understand what in the world the other one is thinking and how they could possibly view the world that way. Sound familiar? When I was in ministerial school, we spent so much time studying and learning. And I remember at the beginning of the second year, we had been going for about 6 weeks, and then one Thursday, they said, okay, going into the weekend, we always had classes Monday through Thursday, and they said, starting tomorrow and all through the next week, we don't want you to study anything. Just take some space. We still had classes, but we didn't have assignments, except to just let it integrate into who we were. And I'll never forget how profound that was. We were so used to studying, and it was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to study anything this week. And then I realized how much I'd been studying, and I hadn't had the space to let it settle in at depth. I would do that in little ways. There would be times I would come home from classes at ministerial school, and I would walk into the house, and I would immediately go and stretch out and take a nap and sleep for like 2 hours. And when I woke up, I felt like what I was playing with in my mind had been processed through my heart and my soul, and I woke up, it was like, oh, it was a deeper kind of knowing. There were times it hit me so hard that I would wake up after sleeping for 2 or 3 hours, and I had my purse in my hand and my shoes on, laying in bed. And I talked to one of my instructors because she said, oh, if you're doing spiritual work, you should have nothing, but you had boundless energy. You know, and I was going, well, my response is I curl up and go to sleep. Am I doing something wrong? And she said, oh my gosh, absolutely no. I should never have given you that thought. She said, because we all process differently. I'm by nature an introvert, and so I process in quiet and stillness. And when I sleep, that veil gets thin between my logical mind and my spiritual understanding. And so to this day, I still occasionally really enjoy a good afternoon nap. And so integrating what you're learning is such a part of it. Deep knowing is a soul level of knowing, and it's very different than what we were taught growing up that spirituality was, where spirituality was theology, it was doctrine, it was you must believe this to find the way to God. The Gnostic tradition, gnosis means knowing, recognizes that we all have divine truth and understanding, that as it says in the Hebrew scriptures of the Old Testament, it is writ upon our hearts. And that's reinforced with the writings and the teachings in the New Testament. It is recognizing and reawakening to the truth of your being, to your calling, and it's being willing to do the soul work to transform, to take this knowledge and not just keep it up here, but to integrate it in so it becomes a part of who you are and what you have to offer to the world. If all you're gaining is knowledge of your brain, it'll take you so far, but not into the journey of soul that is why you are here. In Barefoot on Holy Ground, Gloria Karpinski says there are gateways to enlightenment. And enlightenment is that knowing that you know that you know. She says this: you must have a loving heart. That's one gateway. A clear mind. I love that term, a clear mind. And a dedicated longing, a desire, a calling. And so that takes heart and mind and soul and brings them all together. A clear mind. Years ago when I was in ministerial school, I heard one of the speakers say one of the greatest gifts you can give to another is safe passage through your mind. Let go of the judgment and instead surround them with compassion. And they said the corollary that goes with that is the greatest thing you can give yourself is safe passage through your own mind. I don't know about you all, but I can sometimes be my biggest critic. And so beholding everyone with a loving heart and a clear mind and a dedicated desire to behold the divine in everything. She said Jesus lived this. He incorporated heart and mind and a dedication into all that he did. And it's interesting because she talked about something that I've shared before here, and that when we did a film series, we actually showed a film on it, and it's Jesus' lost years, where he's a kid and then suddenly he's an adult beginning his mystery. And it is believed that he studied with masters in Egypt, Persia, India, Tibet, and even in the United Kingdom around Glastonbury. There are stories of him being there studying the Druidic earth traditions. And I love that because he was gathering knowledge, but not just saying, oh, I've learned this, and this. He took the time to bring it into his heart, which allowed it to become clearer in his mind, and then he dedicated himself to sharing that with all of us. She writes this: we cannot talk about knowledge without considering the mechanisms of consciousness. Naturally, we think first of our brains, but we actually hold knowledge everywhere. Every cell, tissue, organ at a physical level. We are made of stardust. We sometimes forget that. And it is far vaster than the physical brain. The brain, she says, is the tool, it's the vehicle She says that knowledge is the dynamic energy behind brain activity, and it is called mind itself. And the process of being that includes the brain as its vehicle, but not confined by it. So it helps us so much if we can expand that whole idea of what knowledge is. If you don't include heart and dedication, it's like a clanging gong, as it says in the New Testament. And I love, in the course of love, we learned about wholeheartedness. And in the book that we studied as well, that was from Jack Angelo, and he talked about wholeheartedness, that so much of our culture has been doing all these different things and learning and evolving, and how fast we're evolving now, but that until you take it into the heart, it's not whole and complete. Wholeheartedness, where we're totally connected. And in this book, she talks about whole brain, that real understanding is knowledge and intuition, and they connect. Whole brain. It's the knowing and the logic, and also the intuition and that inner sense of truth. They have to weave together. And then you have whole brain. And our brain is actually built, as a nurse, I learned this. There's a corpus callosum, it's called, that links the right and left sides of our brains. And I think it's also really interesting that the left side of your brain is what works the right side of your body, and the other way around. It's all part of a creative whole, and you need all of it. You need knowledge, but you also need intuition. And we'll be talking about intuition more in 2 weeks. I love, she writes, knowledge is a stepping stone toward enlightenment. It is not enlightenment itself. Let me read that again. Knowledge is a stepping stone toward enlightenment. It is not enlightenment itself. Ideally, we live in a balance of knowing and not knowing. I know I sure do. Knowing and not knowing. And I love it. She says not one or the other, but both. She's an and person as well. The Buddha says we are what we think. All that arises in our thoughts, and with our thoughts we make the world. And from Proverbs, as a man thinketh within himself, so he is. And from Romans, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. It's not so much what happens to us, it's how we perceive and interpret it. And it's amazing how 2 people can have the same experience, and each one interprets it and perceives it differently. And there are times in our lives where, as we grow and evolve, we have experiences that we've had before and we have it again, but this time we're in a new place of consciousness. And so it is like a whole new experience for us, because we've been transformed by the renewing of our mind and our willingness to be loving, clear-minded, and dedicated. And as we do those things, then not only is our mind transformed, but our lives and our world are transformed. That's actually the title of one of the books. It's a classic unity book by Elizabeth Turner. And it is Be Ye Transformed is the title of the book. One of the things that Gloria Karpinski goes into is 12 considerations on knowledge. She loves the number 12, as do I. 12 is a divine number. There were 12 tribes, 12 disciples. There are 12 months. There's 12 astrological signs. And so 12 is a number of fullness and completion of expression in many, many different ways. And so these 12, I'm going to go through them and just let them settle in as I talk and see which one is your aha. I need to remember this. 1, knowledge obeys spiritual law. Seek and you will find. That spiritual passage, the scripture says, not just some will find. It said, for everyone who seeks, they will find. You don't have to be better or different. You will find. And it's all based on those universal truths that we were talking about, like gravity. Number 2, knowledge provides the maps, but we must make the journey. I love that. The map gives you an idea of where you are and where you want to get to, but we decide how and if we get there. If I wanted to go from here to New York City, I could drive across the country. I could go even faster if I flew in a jet. If I was on Star Trek, I could teletransport in an instant. Or I could go down to South America and then across to Australia and then around and around and around and then get to New York. I don't know about you, but there are times in my life I think I've done exactly that. I've taken the longer path, but we're promised and we will get there. And so knowledge isn't the map itself, it provides the map, and then you work with it. Number 3, knowledge illuminates the blindness of superstition. And under superstition, personally, I also include doctrine that leads us away from the awareness that we are divine and the divine is in everything. I want to have my heart illuminated to truly see the presence of love in everything as Jesus calls us to do. Number 4, myths and symbols depict dynamics and not fixed realities. I've always believed that studying the history, the events of a culture, gives you a surface level of what was going on. But if you study their stories and their myths, you're getting more into the conscious level of their presence, their evolution, their beingness. And so myths and symbols are a language of the divine to show us what's going on. They're not fixed. That's why if you've got a dream dictionary, they usually have multiple meanings for the same thing. And I always tell people, if something is going on and it comes to you in a dream, ask your soul to help you interpret it. What do the symbols mean for you in this moment? Not what's the traditional knowledge. What is the soul understanding of that? It's also why myths are so important. Joseph Campbell said, if you want to change the belief system of a culture in one generation, change their stories and myths. Because that is a way that we collectively understand who we are. Number 5, beginner's mind is unbiased and therefore teachable. Remember how you started kindergarten and it was just like, oh, look at all the colors. I'm learning the numbers. I'm learning how to color in the lines and not in the lines. Beginner's mind just is. That's why Jesus said, be like children. Be open to the wonder of life, because new knowledge comes in as those light bulbs going off in your head. And when you're open and teachable, and I would add curious, then new information that's swimming all around you, you become aware of and you notice. Number 6, Intelligence exists in every atom of life and can be contacted. We know that in unity through the power of prayer. We've seen the experiments of Emoto where you can literally see the transformational changes in water when it is prayed over with love and with peace. The molecules literally go from dark and chaotic to bright and shining and symmetrical. Every atom of life can be contacted. That's why if you talk to and pray with your plants, they do better. Dossie writes about the experiment at the cardiac unit out in California, that when people prayed for the particular group versus the other group, the group that was prayed for, even though the prayers had no idea who specifically they were praying for, the wave of prayer energy caused so much improvements in quicker recovery, less complication, less need of medication, that the researchers said if this had been a new medication, it would have been on the front page as a miracle drug. It's that interconnectedness of everything. Number 7, mind is a process always interacting with other processes. That's what happened in those examples of prayer for the cardiac unit. Number 8, wisdom synthesizes the knowledge of mind, body, and spirit. Wisdom, in the Old Testament, wisdom is called Sophia. It's actually divine feminine, because it takes the knowledge of the brain and drops it into the heart. It becomes whole brain. It becomes integrated. And so wisdom is knowledge, and it's also the knowledge of the body. Our bodies hold the experiences we've been through, and healing is at every level of being, including the body, but also the heart and the mind and the soul. Number 9, one who knows is free to say, I don't know, and learn more. I love that. Growing up, if you were asked in class what the answer to the question was and you said, I don't know, you got in trouble because that was that lower knowledge. But deep knowledge says, say I don't know. Because if you say you don't know, it means you're open to seek and to find. It doesn't mean you haven't done your homework. It means that you're curious and you're open to some new insight you've never had before. Number 10, knowledge solves and creates mysteries simultaneously. That's that paradox again. And I'd always heard that if you find paradox, you find the divine dancing in there, where two seeming opposites both continue to be true in the same moment. And so knowledge solves mysteries. Oh, now I understand why I went through that experience to get me here. But it also creates mysteries. What am I supposed to do with it now? I love that. The mystery is one of my favorite things. I love having mystery. In fact, when I do readings, I always have a card in the deck that's the mystery card, which means it's not time for this to be revealed. So be at peace, continue on the journey. Number 11, science is God, Goddess revealed. All seekers are true scientists. And a real disservice was done centuries ago when the traditional church separated spirituality and religion from science, because they're both ways of speaking the same language. They're another paradox. I remember when I started studying astrology, oh, how can you do that as a minister, a Christian minister? And I said, how could I not if it's all divine? It's another way I can look and see the beautiful wonder of the divine pattern of things. Our scientists are now, with quantum science and quantum physics, realizing and coming to conclusion that the mystics have said all the way along. Those in our lifetime are being woven back together because we need both. Traditional science is the knowledge of mind, but when it really works, it includes the heart and brings the heart into it as well. I know Einstein said that true inspiration was not that you had to do all your homework and study, and you would do all of this with your mind. He was brilliant. But he said the true shifts in perception come when you wake up in the middle of the night and you go, oh, aha. That's where all of his deepest insights came from. He said, I needed to do my homework, but I also needed to lay it down and let my mind play with spirit. And so seekers are scientists and scientists are seekers. We're weaving it back together into a wholeness and saying that paradox holds both, and that's the presence of the divine. And finally, number 12, knowledge prepares the vessel that revelation fills. And revelation is those aha moments, intuition, and we'll talk about that more in 2 weeks. So knowledge prepares you. When I put together things for Sunday, I spend the whole week preparing, and there are times, as you all know, at the last minute, I throw out parts or the whole thing because some inspiration comes, but I wouldn't be able to receive it and express it if I hadn't done my homework during the week. Knowledge prepares the vessel. That's why we in Unity love to read and study books and go to workshops, watch YouTube videos on spirituality, because we are seekers and we want to prepare our vessels so that spirit can move in, through, and as us. Matthew uses the words of Jesus, which say it absolutely perfectly. This is the bottom line of knowledge and integration. Are you ready? Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all else will be added. Be willing to see with the eyes of God and take what you're learning and integrate it through your individual soul into beautiful gifts you can pour from the chalice of your heart out into a world that so needs it. And the universe is responding. I invite you now to close your eyes for a moment. Oh, and just settle in to this holy moment. Oh, and let yourself be willing to be transformed by the renewing of your mind in the coming week, by being able to see things anew. Be willing to say, I don't know, and be curious and like a child, so that the wonder of this world is reborn in, through, and as you. For it is through this wonder that we can truly change the world. But we know we must begin first by seeking first the kingdom of heaven that abides in, through, and as us, and in, through, and as our world. May we have the eyes to see and the ears to hear the wisdom of the divine as it meets us right where we are and as we are. And so it is. Om, amen, and blessed be. And so now we're going to get to embody it, integrate it. So I invite you to stand. Oh, and just take a breath or two and become present.